In the silent hour before dawn, the world fate can hang on a machine of thunder and steel, hidden beneath ocean, stalking the sky, or standing ready on the ground. This weapon embodied the zenith of American military power. From the explosive size of a wave-crashing aircraft carrier to the crackling speed of a hypersonic missile, it has been forged by decades of innovation and necessity. They are the deterrents and shock troops of a new era of a great power competition. Today, we count down the 10 most formidable of them. It's more awe-inspiring and consequential than the last, culminating in a number 1 so decisive it puts all together into perspective. What follows is a world-spanning journey. We begin at number 10, and by number 1 we'll have looked into the abyss of ultimate power. At number 10 stand the Tomahawk cruise missile. Launched from submarine and destroyer, this subsonic missile can wave under radar and strike hardened target from over 1,000 miles away. Its low-altitude flight and GPS guidance make it incredibly precise, able to loiter hover over a battlefield awaiting a strike order. Since its introduction in the 1980s, Tomahawk has been tried and true in the combat. The US and allies have launched it in thousands of times, over 2,350 according to the manufacturer, to topple Iraqi tanks in the Desert Storm and hit deep targets in the Middle East. Its 1,000-pound conventional warhead and ability to be retaken in a flight give commander surgical power. But Tomahawk has limit at roughly 550 miles per hour subsonic. It can be shot down by modern air defenses, and its $1 to $2 million missile is a costly gamble. Still, in the right moment it changed conflict, turning carrier and submarine strike into pinpoint assault. If hundreds of miles may spare at ship and target, this missile feat can make the gap vanish. As dawn breaks on our list, even Tomahawk, the veteran of cruise missile, must pass the baton to something new and even more staggering. Climbing to number 9 is a rocket from tomorrow. Imagine a missile that screams skyward at Mach 5 times the speed of sound, in the blink of an eye. That's what ARRW did in this maiden test. After dropping from a B-52 bomber, its booster ignited and burned for expanded duration, achieving hypersonic speed 5 times greater than the speed of sound. This Air Force's hypersonic weapon is meant to hold high-value targets at risk everywhere on Earth with almost no warning. A fake base or ship might scramble, but a Mach 5 dares precision little time. The RRW is game-changing advantage, its sheer speed and surprise. It is the first US operational hypersonic weapon, built to dash through enemy air defenses. Its limitations are equally dramatic. It's still in testing, cost per shot is enormous, and reliable flight has been hard to achieve. But the Pentagon has declared it's a success story and rushed to build production prototypes. The race is on. If an ARRW can outpace any interceptor, it forces rivals to develop their own hypersonic defenses. The suspense here built, if a 5-volt sonic boom is invisible until it's almost upon you, what then stops the next weapon we'll discuss. Now at number 8 cruises the Zumwalt class stealth destroyer. Sleek and angular, the Zumwalt DDG-1000 is a shadow on the ocean. Its tumble-home hull greatly shrinks its radar signature. At 30 knots and displacing about 14,000 tons, it carries a potent, high-tech arsenal. Its active vertical launch cell, MK57 VLS, can pack an incredible punch. Its cell can hold Tomahawk, ASSM or SM-6 surface-to-air missile or ASROC anti-sub rocket. Originally, the ship was armed with two futuristic 155mm advanced gun systems meant for long-range bombardment, but those were left without ammo. Instead, the Navy is converting Zumwalt ship to fire 12 hypersonic conventional prompt strike missile, long-range blast weapon that will give the Zumwalt truly unprecedented strike reach. The destroyer advantage is this flexible firepower and deep integration. It boasts a massive 78 MW electric plant, enough to power laser or railgun in the future upgrade. Its limitations are equally stark, at over $7.5 billion each, with only 3 ever built. It's essentially an ultra-expensive testbed, not a numerically formidable class, but as a preview of tomorrow's fleet, a ghost ship-packing missile salvos. Sumol injects an oscillating dynamism. It flies silently into harbor and from there can rain missile inland. Yet even this spectrality technique must make way for other power players in the next rank. Steel Thunder arrived at number 7 in the form of the M1 Abrams main battle tank. This massive rolling furnace has been America's armored knight for decades. 73 tons of composite and depleted uranium armor encased a 120mm main cannon fed by automatic loading, an unapologetically heavy packet. Powered by a 1,500 horsepower gas turbine, the Abrams can sprint at 42 miles per hour on roads and ramble hundreds of miles, about 264 miles on internal fuel, through desert or city. Its battle debut came in the Gulf War of 1991, where crew in shiny new M1A1 swept aside Iraqi T-72 at stunning range and comfort. The Abrams' game-changing strength is exactly that combination of survival ability and firepower. On the move, it can punch through any rival tank, and its reactive armor can shrug off most incoming shell. But it has drawback too. Tanks this heavy guzzle jet fuel, requiring enormous logistic support, and their size make them vulnerable to air and missile attack in a modern battlefield. Upgraded variant, the M1A2 SAP V3 add digital sensor and networking, but the core challenge remains one of resources. Still, where ground warfare goes conventional, Abrams is usually in the lead. This steel giant reshaped mechanized tactic in the 20th century, but as we look above the cloud, even it makes way for more costly gun. Soaring in at number 6 is the Lockheed Martin F-22 Raptor. Like an idealist bird of prey, the F-22 is sleek. Stealthy frame vanish on radar while two Pratt and Whitney engines thunder it past Mach 2.25, roughly 1,500 miles per hour at altitude. It can even fly continuously at about Mach 1.7 without afterburner, meaning it can supercruise across hundreds of miles in minutes. With a combat radius of about 460 nautical miles clean and nearly 1,900 nautical miles ferry range, it covers vast airspace. The Raptor core advantage is still in situational awareness. Its an APG-77 ISAR radar can pick a target over 150 miles away. Infrared sensor let the pilot see, even if the jet nose is not pointed at the enemy. In essence, F-22 can shoot down opposing fighter before they even know it's there. The flip side is cost and scarcity. Its Raptor costs on the order of $150 million, and only 187 were built due to budget cut, but those dozen Air National Guard Squadron will avert some aid. First delivery in 2005, F-22 have since flown combat sorties over Syria and elsewhere. Their stealth and speed making them point counter-air asset. They remain a cornerstone of American air dominance. Yet as the world builds faster missile and smarter radar, the Raptor must hand baton to the next generation of power. At number 5 lies the Minuteman III. Nearly invisible to the public, Minuteman missiles stand in hardened underground silos, ready to launch in a flash. This Cold Star deterrent can uncoil a 3-stage solid fuel rocket straight up through the atmosphere at roughly 15,000 miles per hour, flinging a 300 kiloton nuclear warhead over 9,000 miles. In fact, these missiles were the first in US history to carry multiple warheads. through arm control treaties today limit them to one each. From a single launch site, each SCBM can hold an entire continent at risk in under half an hour, a sobering counter-strike insurance. Its advantage is the instantaneous global reach and the security of dispersal. With hundreds of silos scattered across the plain, any enemy strike will likely leave surviving silos to retaliate. But the limitation is the static nature. Fixed silos can be targeted or even destroyed by a first strike, and Minutemen Force today have to endure decades of weathering and modernization. Indeed, the Air Force is already replacing them with the new Sentinel ICBM, slated to arrive around 2030. When astronauts flip the switch to launch in training simulation, missilers in underground launch control center are responsible for that nearly instant counterpunch. In strategic impact, Minuteman is titanic, but even the earth-shaking boom of ICBM yields to mic from above the sky. Midway through the list at number 4, flying the Lockheed Martin F-35 Lightning II. This jet may not break the sound barrier outright, top speed about Mach 1.6, but its strength lies in the sensor and steel. The F-35 is faceted design, extensive internal fuel until 18,250 lb, and advanced coating making it very low observable, allowing it to sneak into constrained airspace. It can travel roughly 1,500 nautical miles on internal fuel, loitering for hours far from base. Pilots see the battlefield through a 360-degree helmet display fed by camera and sensor around the aircraft. Its 4 internal weapon bays let it carry guided bomb and missile, even the nuclear B-6112, without spoiling its radar signature. And it can mount another 15 pounds of ordnance on the external pylons when steel is needed. The game-changing advantage of the F-35 is network warfare. It fuses data from alias and drone into a single view, operating as both sensor and shooter in one. On the flip side, the F-35 program has had growing pains, software bugs and high costs, about $100 million each. Although recent blocks of software have likely fixed the worst issue. By 2026, over 1,000 F-35 builds in US Squadron and Allied Air Force, shaping how wars are fought in precision strike and stealthy reconnaissance. This is not just a fighter, it's a flying command post. Still, like its predecessor, it leads to the next question: what platform dominates when even pilots disappear into digital battle network? At number 3 is the newest nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, the USS Gerald R. Ford. This floating city of war displaces roughly 100,000 tons and can steam at over 30 knots for decades without refueling. Its 2 new A-1B nuclear reactors produce enough electricity to run a small town, powering advanced sensor and the new electromagnetic aircraft launch system or EMALS catapult. On board, about 2,600 crew plus a 75 to 90 aircraft air wing operate around the clock. This wing include FA-18 Super Hornet, A-2D Hawkeye early air warning planes, MH-60 helicopter, and the new F-35C Stealth Fighter, up to 90 aircraft ready to launch on demand. The fourth class core advantage is sheer scale. From any ocean, it projects American power hundreds of miles inland. Its flight deck can sustain 160 sorties a day with a surge to 270, meaning a dozen carriers could swarm like flying anthills in a conflict. However, this power comes at an epic price, nearly $13 billion per ship. And even this Leviathan faced threat from long-range missile and diesel submarine. Still in 2026, its carrier strike group remains a kingmaker. When one pulls into port of patrol the South China Sea, it shifts regional calculation. It is said that a carrier with jet engine roaring is like a battle where you can sail, truly an embodiment of American naval might. But even the largest island on water wheel The last rank to the sky. Soaring in at number 2 is the P-21 Raider. Born of secrecy and advanced engineering, the P-21 is still in a flight test, but it looms as a cornerstone of US deterrence. While details remain classified, what we know is cinematic. The Raider is designed to penetrate any enemy's descent air defenses, carrying both nuclear and conventional bombs deep into constant territory. Early reports indicated it has transcontinental range and will be capable of carrying a mix of smart munition internally. By 2026, the Air Force planned to begin field to P-21s, built to combat standards, and rapidly scale up production. It is, as generals say, the sixth generation, stealth bomber and a cornerstone of nuclear modernization. Its advantage is being the logical evolution of the P-2 Spirit, more fuel efficient, sensor rich, and cheaper per copy. Its limitation so far is largely in the unknown. Until it flies operationally, we must trust it will work. But consider the state, an unfettered, invisible bomber that can glide into heavily defended airspace and unload dozens of precision weapons could alter any battlefield. The P-21 is designed to replace the aging P-1 and P-2 fleet, ensuring that the USAF can always hide at least one hand of the nuclear power. While it may still be shadowed by test pilot and production crew, its arrival will be a defining moment. And yet, even this marvel bow to the solitary sentinel at number 1. Finally, at number 1, lying the Ohio-class Nuclear Ballistic Missile Submarine or SSBM. Sometimes called a boom bug, an Ohio SSBM is a 560-foot warship that prowls the ocean deep almost unseen. Its sub displaces about 18,750 tons submerged, making it the largest submarine ever built for the US Navy. But it must hide its power. Within its cracking hull are 24 missile tubes. It's loaded with a Trident II D5 missile armed with multiple nuclear warheads. These Trident have a range of roughly 4,000 nautical miles, about 7,400 km, meaning a submarine hidden of adversary coast can hold city at risk in minutes. The Ohio-class game-changing advantage is its stealth and endurance. These boats are so quiet, using electric drive and sound damping, that in sea trial an Ohio was virtually undetectable, even while moving. Two crew, Blue and Gold, takes turns on a 70 to 90 days patrol, ensuring one sub is always submerged, ready as a second strike guarantor. Indeed, together the 14 Ohio SSBN carry about half of all US deployed nuclear warheads, cementing them as the most survivable leg of the strategic deterrence triad. A direct strike on the United States must first find and destroy this silent fleet, a nearly impossible task without total global dominance. The trade-off is cost and secrecy. Its sub costs over $2 billion to build, and their operator trained for decades in insulation. But as 2026 unfolds, it is this underwater colossus, hidden beneath Arctic ice or the Pacific Deep, that holds final sway. In one sense, it is the paradox of modern power, a submarine far from sight, carrying weapons that no captain dares use first. It is the ultimate ace, the supreme guarantor that in a world of weapons, sometimes the mere possibility of overwhelming force is the weapon. Those were the 10 weapons, from the 1,000-mile reach of Tomahawk to the invisible menace of nuclear sub. Each play a part in the grand chessboard of strategy. The list began and ended in a silence, a missile gliding unseen, and a submarine deep beneath the wave. Each segment of this countdown has anchored the theme we opened with that in 2026. Global security hinges on these feats of engineering and power. They matter not for their stats alone, but for what they represent: deterrence, influence, and the shaping of future conflict. As history has shown from the advance of gunpowder to the dawn of aviation. Weapons do more than kill. They alter alliance, budget, and even doctrine. And so, we must ask, in a world armed with this titan, what paths lie ahead? With tens of billions invested in ever more decisive instruments of war, can true stability ever be achieved by simply staying ahead of the latest hardware? Perhaps the final lesson beyond this scandal is that in the race for unlimited firepower, humanity must still decide how and if to use it.